Hello, everyone, and welcome to HockeyProspects.com YouTube channel. I'm Jérôme Bérubé, and as always, I'm joined by Brad Allen. Brad, we have a new team. We're going to take a look at the Columbus Blue Jackets prospect pool for this video. Very interesting top 10 that we have here. So let me just share the screen here. But maybe your first take here on what Columbus has done at the draft table in the recent years. It's a pretty interesting top 10, mostly at the top. We definitely were really high on Caden Lindstrom in his draft year, even though there was some injury concern, and it was definitely a big concern because he didn't really play last season. This year he's at Michigan State. So, but maybe your first take here on maybe a Lidstrom, but maybe an overall take on what Columbus has done at the draft.
Well, for a bubble team that I think ends up surprising a lot of people here in the coming years, they have a lot of talent still in their system. Like that's, I really think they're one of the most underrated franchises moving forward. Like I think they're a top 4 or 5 team, like not in the too distant future. They would have made the playoffs unquestionably if Monahan didn't get injured. Yeah. Not even a question. And that was with Merzlikins having an year. And that's without Greaves, and Tarasov struggled too. So like Columbus, I think, is about to take off. Like I've seen a lot of projections saying that Columbus actually takes a step backwards this season. I couldn't disagree more with that. I think they're going to be way better. Like Fantilli did not have a very good season last year. I know production wise he did, but if you watched him play a lot or saw his advanced stats, which backed up the eye test, wasn't as good as his stats perceived him to be. He's such a dynamic rushing winger that he can, he can have a bad game and score 2 goals essentially, if there's such a thing. And then Jet Greaves coming in, who we'll talk about here, who's going to help push Merzlikins. Usually the best version of Merzlikins is the one that gets pushed. So that might be a very good thing for both of them. And then like you look right down, like they have an elite level goalie. I think Pyotr Andrionov is actually at a superior level to the pool we just talked about with Nabokov. I think Andrionov is a better goalie prospect, to give you an idea of how. I mean, we had him as a 2A. Jerome, how many days, weeks do we argue putting him number 1 on our list instead of Ravensburgen? Very special goalie prospect. And then, top of the lineup defensive prospects that are different. And for Caden Lindstrom, we really do like him more than Roger McQueen. We've seen people talk about how Roger McQueen is better at the same age. We would vehemently disagree with that. And if he makes it, he changes the entire dynamic of Columbus forever, because it allows Fantilli more insulation. It allows Sillinger to move to the wing maybe permanently if needed. And it just opens up the team dynamic. And then I would say the wild card for this one, Jerome, there's 2 really. One would be Stanislav Svozil. Can he actually have a more productive year in the AHL after trying to improve his rush defense in the A? And the other would be Luca Del Belbaluz, who was really good last year, had a phenomenal year in the A, incredibly intelligent player, and just missed the cut this camp. And if he was on basically any, like most other teams, he would have made it. I think he would have made it. So they're pretty underrated. Like this is a pretty decent group of prospects. Like there's a lot of interesting names here. Even Charlie Ellick, who admittedly we are much lower on than the industry. He's mean. He's good Branson, really. He's Eric Branson 2.0, which they have. And then the Dozer, Kirill Dozinkov, who is very underrated publicly. I've been watching him this season. I've watched him quite a bit, and he is looking faster in straight lines, and he can shoot a puck for a 6'6" kid at a rate that you would not expect. Like he has a much better shot than Voronkov at the same age, and he's ahead of Letourneau at the same age. I believe he was ahead of Letourneau. Like the Dozer is very underrated. The Dozer has a tremendous amount of range to his offense because he's terrifying down low, and he has real shot quality, and his hands are pretty smooth, and he's not dumb, and he's massive. So even the 10th player on this list has like a legitimate chance of being something in a depth role.
Speaking of Dozenkov, it was quite funny watching him in his draft year because your first reaction is like, oh my God, like what is this? What is this player? Like he's so big. He looks like, if Brock Lesnar was a hockey player, he looks like
just a thick slab.
Yeah,
Well, you know what's funny is the conditioning was the major issue.
yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
Brock Lesnar ever tried to skate, we'd find out the conditioning would be issue for him
Listen,
too.
Brock Lesnar, his son is actually a player, so maybe
Oh, that's right.
maybe we'll have a Lesnar at least in junior to watch in the next few years. But yeah, but the thing with Lozenkov is that he was looking massive in his draft year, but the year after that looked like he got in really great shape, and he was still 6'6", but he was not as massive as he was, and that I think really helped his game with like more stamina, more more ability to play with pace. But he's really an intriguing prospect, and who has made some good strides. So maybe let's start, Brad, with at the top, Caden Lidstrom. Obviously, the big storyline is the injury, and it's a shame, basically, because we really like this player. We rank him second overall, so like you might think we're crazy. You look at the size, 6'3". He's an elite athlete. We love those, those unicorn freak athlete. He's one of them. Um, and in his draft year, like before he got hurt, he was pretty much a goal per game. Like if you look at his stats, he was just under a goal per game, and that's in your draft year in a WHL, who it's a league that is tougher to score than the OHL and the Q. So that was really impressive. And other things that really impressed us was how physical, how mean he was on the ice. He didn't take any crap from anyone. I remember he had some massive battles with Carter Yakinchuk in the WHL. So, like, we're looking at a power center that can really shoot a puck, can beat player one on one with his hands, will go to the net, and will play a really physical. It's almost like he was like a mini version of Eric Lindros, basically. Obviously, the injury have really hurt him the past 2 years. Um, I think one thing people mentioned about him, where some people were not as high on him as we did, is that maybe the playmaking was, not as good. I don't think we agree on that part. Like, we saw him make some really high end passing play in his draft year. And is he like the best playmaker like from this class? From this class, no, but you have to look at the overall picture, and what that player brings to the table. We didn't think his playmaking was all that, you know, that bad. We thought we were fine with the playmaking, you know. Um, so we really like this player. This player just needs to stay healthy and play games. Maybe when you draft someone like fourth overall, you expect him to be in your NHL lineup at 19, 20. It's not going to be the case with Caden. He's going to take some time. He's at Michigan State, a great program. Like they are really doing some good things over there. So he's going to have time to you know get his game going, and physically get back to where he needs to be. But there's no rush here with that player. I think for Columbus, I'm really curious to see how he looks this upcoming season with Michigan State. Um, they have done some great work with some guys that were struggling. I remember Charlie Stramel looked like he was looking awful at Wisconsin, and then he left Wisconsin, went to Michigan State, and had a really good season last year. So I'm really looking forward to see how Lidstrom does at Michigan State. Like, they are stacked. Riker Lee is there, Porter Martone is there. They have some guys. They are probably the favorite to win the NCAA title this upcoming season. So I'm really excited to see how Lidstrom does, and if he can find his form that we saw in his draft year. So, Brad, you want to add something on Caden Lindstrom here?
Well, he's close to my heart because he has the same injury I had. That
Hmm.
Really put me out of commission for a long time. It took me a long time to figure out how to adapt to it. I had to change all my training strategies. I had a herniated disc between my L2 and L3. So for me, it basically meant my loaded squats were a wrap. No more lifting heavy ass weight on my back. I'm trying to get the Lesnar trap going. That was out the window. So I had to adapt. I ended up doing front squats for a bit. Then when that fell apart, it was like, okay, I'll do hack squats, and then that worked. And then Bulgarian split squats, I had to change my elevation, but then I could get those to work. My point in saying all this is like, he can make it work. He can still be a dominant force. He just has to adapt his training programs. Obviously, he has some of the best strength and conditioning coaches in the world, so that shouldn't be a problem. The main thing with that type of injury, I was a collegiate wrestler, and so I had to deal with this as well, which is like, there's certain positions where you don't want to put yourself in a susceptible spot on the ice. So, for instance, like, depending on how low his herniation is, I don't know how low his is. Mine was really low. So I never wanted to be caught in a bad position where my back was rounding. My lower back was rounding, because basically there's no power there anymore, right? Now, I was dumb. I was young and dumb and didn't have the resources that people do now. So I was just trying to fight through it, tore my psoas muscles a dozen times. That didn't help. He's not in that situation. So as long as he has the mobility, and again, structure himself differently, I can't imagine a reason why he couldn't come back and still be close to 100%. And from a hockey perspective, it's not going to matter too much unless he gets blown to pieces with like a stand-up hit where it's unexpected for him and it hits him at the wrong time. I could see that maybe being a factor, but with the exception of that, I think he should be okay. I think it's something he should be able to come back from. So, let's put it this way. If I was as dumb as I was with my injury and I came back at least 50%, I'm sure he can get back to 90%, no problem.
All right. Jackson Smith was an interesting player in last year's draft. We had some good conversation about him. He's at Penn State this upcoming season, playing with some guy named Gavin McKenna. Really interesting. We had some good debate. Maybe we can bring Denton Matichuk in that conversation, because those were pretty close for us for that ranking. We went with Jackson Smith based on maybe the fact that he's bigger, the fact that he's a better athlete than Matichuk. Matichuk does think the game better, but there's still some flaw with Matichuk as far as backward skating, recovery skating that we saw in his draft year, and those are still a bit some of the issue that he has at the NHL level. So we'll see. I think both guys have a chance to be. I mean, Matichuk is pretty much a top 4D with Columbus at this point. So that's probably the last time you see him on the prospect list. But Jackson Smith will, likely play the next 2 years in college after playing 2 years in the WHL. So I think the key for him, the big, I guess not a big drawback, but somewhat of a flaw that we saw last year was a bit sometimes the IQ let him down a bit in some time. But he has the way he skates with his size, and things he can do offensively. If really the IQ is a problem, that will stop him from reaching his full potential. But that remains to be seen. Interesting. I'm really curious to see how he does with Penn State this season, and possibly playing for Canada at the World Junior. They don't have a lot of defensemen for that tournament. Like, I was looking at the Canadian roster for the World Junior, possibly. The decor is not exactly a selling point. So there's a chance for Jackson Smith with a great, first 2-3 months of the season to put himself on the map here to be a key player on that team. So yeah, maybe Brad, you want to touch on those two before we move to Andreanov.
Sure. I think Matejchuk has a better chance of becoming a true number one power play quarterback in the future, especially getting to learn from Werenski. To your point, like just smarter, processes faster, reads the game better, just better at understanding how to time his playmaking. Smith more dominant in terms of his shot and his lateral mobility. Like he's just more mobile than Matejchuk, better shooting mechanics than Matejchuk. The big thing with Matejchuk is I'm sure some of you saw him. Some of you listening to this saw him get absolutely burned by Pierre-Luc Dubois in the neutral zone, and that is 100% right back to his draft year. That was the issue. The kid can't skate backwards. Not a great athlete when it comes to getting off his center line for a 5'11" player. And that's not looking like it looks like, he's close to filled out now. So it looks like it's always going to be an issue. Now, that said, he does have enough offense to make up for that. But that's one of the primary reasons why we put Smith ahead for now. The other thing I'll say, Jerome, you mentioned like the college team with Martone and all they're going to be amazing. Like UPenn, like that's pretty solid. Charlie Serrato is looking mean early here, and they got McKenna and Smith. The only thing, imagine if Callum Tongue was back for another year. He signed with the Rangers. If they had Callum Tongue, that team is getting scary. So
Brad will always find a way to mention the goalie that he likes.
I'll wait until he story is ranked on the Rangers list. So speaking of, I mean, that segues me perfectly into Andrionov. For my money, top 3 goalie prospect in the world, I'd say for my money, top 3. Already utterly dominant in the VHL. The only issue with this player is that he loves to stay thick. I got bigorexia. I know what it's like. Poor Andrionov. He's on my diet of ice cream. I've never had Russian ice cream. I'll try it though. But he prefers the natural weight of being a bit heavier. And like all jokes aside, I mean, one of the best athletes that ever lived, Big River Man. He was a Slovakian swimmer who was broke like basically every long distance swimming record in the world. He was a functional alcoholic. He lived in a cave. He had a key like Batman to a cave in Slovakia. And he's one of the most remarkable athletes of all time. The reason most people have never heard of him, if not everybody here not hearing him, is that he actually did get huge sponsors. He was going to be featured on NBC, and he was everywhere for a bit, but he had a gambling addiction, so they dropped his sponsorships. But my point is, he was like 250 pounds, and he looked clinically obese. One of the best athletes you ever see. Don't judge a book by its cover. Sometimes, like Big Country Nelson, the UFC, like that dude can move. Mark Hunt of the UFC in Pride back in the glory days. Mark Hunt was a bigger, thicker dude, but he felt comfortable and natural at that weight. So with Andrionov, it's like, on paper, I want him to slim down, but if it works for him, it works for him. And there are no other flaws. There is literally no other major flaws in his skill set almost at all. Incredibly well-rounded, everything you want mentally, way more nimble and dexterous than you would expect, exceptional skating base, remarkable reader of the game. Everything's there. Andrew, I know for some of you listening that aren't Columbus fans, you saw that he was overdrafted. And really, everybody publicly was like, what is he doing going in the first round? He should have always gone in the first round. We always had him ranked in the first round, and it was a great pick by Columbus. So there you go. It's, again, like, public perception doesn't really match the reality of a draft because it depends on how, like, I don't even know, like, I can't even remember a single other scouting staff, Jerome, besides yourself, that even did a breakdown of them. Was there? Like, there's not many people that do goalie scouting. So
listen, we did a goalie podcast for 2 hours. So no, I can't
No.
assure you no one has done this.
So Jerome, do you want to touch on him? Because you watched him a lot with me too. You're a huge fan.
He was my favorite goalie in the draft, and sometimes you're like, oh God, 6 feet, doesn't look like in the best shape. There's a bit Jacob Fowler in his draft year was, something similar. Like, he was a bit overweight, but the thing with Jacob Fowler is that he came back the year after and he was in fantastic shape when he went to Boston College. So there's a bit of that with Andrionov, but it doesn't really seem to affect him on the ice. He moves well, like from side to side. He's got good athletic ability, I find. And he's just like goddamn good at stopping a puck. Is the best way I can put it. Like he was, I called him. I think I wrote this in the black book, not the black book, our new book that we did last year. He looked like a rock star in his crease. The way he moves, there's just a flair about how he plays in front of, in front of his net. There's a lot to like. I didn't pinpoint Columbus as the team that was going to go with a goalie in the first round. Like we were trying to predict who was going to take one of the goalie. We thought the Prince George goalie, Ravensburgen. We thought he was going to be the guy that goes first, just based on being in North America, having more scouts, being able to watch him.
Being a lot bigger.
Yeah, yeah, that doesn't hurt. But the truth is, Andrianov was so much better than him last year. I don't think Ravensburgen had like a really great season last year. Like his -1 was really good. Um, Even though it's still a bit inconsistent, from what I remember. Like first half was great, second half a bit less, but great playoff. So last year, Ravensburger was a bit, I don't know. I find him still pretty raw. So I felt like Andrianov was, the better of the two. But we still went with Ravensburger as the number one, maybe because of the size. Maybe with the fact that Andrianov is a bit overweight for a 6 foot, goalie. But man, if you watch him play, he's so fun to watch, and I think he's got that special. There's something special about him as a goalie. He doesn't look like what an actual NHL goalie should look like, but he has made it work. He's not coming to the NHL this season. He's not coming to the NHL next season. He's gonna have time, and I'm sure at some point he's gonna get in fantastic shape, a bit like Jacob Fowler did at Boston College, and Columbus will have a true future number one goalie with him once he's ready to come over. Brad, do you want to talk about maybe Jack Greaves? Speaking of goalies, who is has made Columbus, was with Columbus last season, so we're cheating a bit here, as we still consider him as a prospect, but he's pretty much a full-time NHLer at this point. But great story, never drafted. So really great find by Columbus, signing him out of the OHL in 2022.
Yeah, what's funny is I still remember him in the OHL, and he was never bad ever. So I just thought he was like everybody else. The reason for free agent signing, I thought he was just too small and not athletically gifted enough for the NHL at that time, and that's wrong. So there's always players that come around. You're like, oh, I have to kind of adapt and figure out, relook at the position and understand some of the technical aspects a bit better, understand why he translated. And there's two massive ones. One is that he is one of the best goalies I've ever seen at using his inside edge work and remaining poised so that he can use it. He never, almost ever drops prematurely. He's always on his skates. So always uses inside edge work correctly so he can get back ahead of the play and get set to shots. And the other factor with this goalie is that he is stupidly intelligent and consistent. He's got very similar to Andrianov in that respect, Jerome. Like Andrianov, ridiculously consistent, ridiculously poised. And as you mentioned, there's a moxie to Andrianov where he's a bit like there's a flair to him. Greaves is interesting in the fact that you can tell he's an introvert. And he plays the position like an introverted goalie, but it still screams on the ice because it's so quiet and poised and calculated and composed. Basically, it's the opposite of Merzlikins. Merzlikins, he'll break sticks, he'll cry in the corner, he'll throw a tantrum. Some games he looks like he shouldn't be in the NHL, and then other games he's the best goalie you've ever seen, and he's stopping 50 shots on New Jersey, and Jack Hughes is losing his mind because he can't believe he hasn't beaten him yet. My point is Merzlikins all over the map. Greaves is the exact opposite. Merzlikins, obviously a much better toolkit, far more athletically gifted, but Greaves looks like he might be the exact minimum threshold required just to be able to still play, with the athletic components he has, because again, he's nowhere near as quick as Andrionov that we've talked about, Nabokov from Colorado's system, even Evan Gardner at the same age, who's much quicker than Greaves was. So it's one of those situations where Greaves is just that smart. He reminds me a lot of Philip Gustafsson from that perspective, who's a goalie I admittedly do not like, but he's very good. So the big thing with Greaves is that you don't really know what he will be in the NHL until the 90-game mark, which won't be happening for a while. And the reason I say around the 90-game mark is because once he hits around 90 to 120 games, basically every team understands what he is, and then they will adapt their offense to him, and then Greaves will have to go through a process of readapting to the league. This is why NHL goaltending is just so difficult to understand, is because basically you have two different types of careers. The first is make it and stick. And the second is everything is adapted to you. Now you must readapt or die. And I'm willing to bet that Greaves readapts and doesn't die because of his intelligence. That said, there will always be the limiting quality that he is scary unathletic for his size relative to most NHL goalies. That does not mean he's not a good athlete. Yes, I've seen him make dynamic saves for the random Columbus fans screaming at me right now. It's just, if you will compare him to Wolf and Levi and Gorgiev and all the other smaller goalies, Nedeljkovic, like they're more athletically gifted, right? So, well, I should say Nedeljkovic versus him is close, but like Wolf, Levi, Gorgiev, it's not even comparable, right? But he's twice the goalie Gorgiev is, because he understands how to actually stay set and not drift forward. Again, which goes back to his edge work, which is phenomenal. So, Jerome, how about Stanislav Svozil and Luca Morelli, a Mark Edwards favorite?
Well, I was going to talk about Morelli. I think Svozil, I think the upcoming season will be very important for him. Like, is he going to be a guy for the NHL, or is he just going to be like AHL / the Czechia League down the road? So I think this year is very important for him to make things happen at a high level, at the American Hockey League level, and get some NHL games and maybe really make an impact. Luca Morelli was, you mentioned Mark Edwards. Mark, our boss, was he was a big fan of him in his draft year, and like I was not too crazy about him as a prospect, and I know you as well, Brad. But man, looking back a year later, like Mark gets the W for that one, because he had a phenomenal season last season with Oshawa. 7 point per game player as a defenseman, almost 20 goals in the playoff. Like, my God, 36 points in 21 games. Like, I was 30 assists.
I would never have expected that one. I'll tell you that.
Like,
that's pretty impressive.
It's just stats, but like it's very telling how much how good he was last year. Like 36 points in 21 games as a defenseman. Like that's really telling. He's trending in the right direction for sure for Columbus. And they took him in a third round, 86 overall. Looks like a good pick by them. We had him 54 on our list, so he's going to be an interesting guy. He's going to play pro this upcoming season. Charlie Elick, definitely a guy at Columbus were a lot higher on him than us. We didn't have much time for him. Like, we rank him 52nd back in his draft year, and I don't know if there's any list out there that had Charlie Elick as low as we did. We still have like question mark about the hockey IQ with him. The puck retrievals are still an issue for us, but he's a right D. He's big. He moves well. If you ask us, we don't think he's going to play. But then we look around the NHL, and there's a ton of guys that look like him in junior with the same flaw, and somehow they are playing in the NHL. So it's not mission impossible for guys like that to make it. And we know NHL team loves those big, physical, stay at home D. Some of them, they do find a way to get to the NHL. We were really not on the Charlie Elick hype train in his draft year. Like he was mentioned as a first round potential pick, and Columbus taking him 36. That means he was in their top 32. So that's a big difference between their rankings and our rankings. So we'll see in a few years who's right and who was wrong. But so far, like we think he fits well here as the ninth best prospect Columbus has. Do you want to add something on Elick, Brad?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting that like certain teams, they're looking at their pro lineup every day, and then they're obviously contrasting that with the prospects. I mean, like, does this player look like he can translate his game? And then with Elick, it's like, well, that's good Branson, and then they have good Branson. They're watching good Branson. Yeah. So I just feel like that had to have played somewhat of a factor. The other aspect of this is, who's the Swedish kid they took again, Jerome, last season that we liked, but not nearly as high as they had? They had him like as a first rounder. They said that publicly. They got him in the third round. Multivas.
Oh yeah.
Remember Multivas? So Multivas is an athletically gifted, hard-hitting, punishing defenseman that plays more of like a North American style of game, right? Like physical, punishing, old school North American style. Looks like he can physically hold against the pros, right? And can skate. And that's what Elick and Voss both do. And to our knowledge, I mean, for sure, Columbus had him in the top 32, maybe A-rated in Elick. And then Multivas, remember they came out and said publicly they had him top 15, didn't they?
Yeah.
So it comes down to like a drafting philosophy, right? And when they see a 6'3" punishing defenseman who's athletically gifted, they obviously weight and value that extremely heavily relative to what we look for, which is ironic in a way, because we also are considered dinosaurs a bit, in that we really think of it's really important to have old school physicality in some players.
Yeah, I think extremely useful. Yeah, I think we do value like hockey sense a lot, but sometimes you look around the NHL, guys that play like Deb role on teams, and you look back at what they were in their draft year, they were not. Sometimes like the hockey sense was not that great either, and they find a way to get to the NHL, and we give our. That's just like an overall take here, but like we're giving our opinion on those guys, but in those videos, it's based on what we saw last year and a bit what we saw this year. But hockey players can change. Like they can get better. This is far from a perfect projection. We're gonna be wrong. We are wrong way too often. Try to get better, but that's the nature of the business. You're gonna be wrong a lot if you get into this business thinking you're never gonna be wrong. Like you're in the wrong business.
Wrong place for you. Like, that is for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just like we were not crazy about Charlie Elick, but it doesn't mean he can't reach the NHL and be a dependable defenseman for the Blue Jackets. We have seen guys like him make it to the NHL way too many times to think he has no chance. And the same thing for Multivas. Guys like that, teams are dying for defensemen like this. Like they don't project as top 4 defensemen, but on your third pairing, if you can get guys like those two, and they can have like a good impact on your team, it's just like not all of them will play. You just need to find the right one. So I think that's gonna wrap up, Brad, for the Blue Jackets. Unless you want to add something, but I think we have, covered pretty much every prospect here.
Sure. I mean, the last thing I'll say is I'm sure some of you might that are familiar with the Columbus's prospect pool might be wondering, like, why is William Whitelaw not there? If you don't like Elick, you don't like Dozer's a long card.
I mean,
wild card player. Why is William Whitelaw not there? Why are not some others there? Whitelaw, for instance, like Jerome just mentioned, hockey sense. We think William Whitelaw has like a flat 3 hockey stats. We think he's not capable of playing at his size because he just doesn't think the game high enough. So that would be the main reason.
I mean, we can. I just mentioned him, but like Jordan Zuma is another really small, 5'8", maybe 5'9".
Totally opposite players.
Yeah.
Opposite players.
Yeah. Like super smart, super talented. But the pace, the skating is his biggest hurdle. Obviously, the injury that he has suffered in the last year also a big problem. Like I think it was a hip surgery that he had. So it's not, and one thing about Columbus, they draft a lot of small player. Like Pinelli in Ottawa was another guy they draft from the OHL. James Malatesta from the Q, also a smaller player. So they didn't, and Whitelaw is also a really small player. So they drafted a lot of like
Brindley as well.
Yeah, Brindley, like a ton of small forwards, and I was like, man, like how many of them will have success? And so far not many. Like Brindley is in the NHL currently, but
Malatesta looks like he might be a 4th line energy guy.
Yeah, maybe
if things go right. Still, maybe. Yeah. But that's about it.
I was pretty curious, pretty shocked when I saw Columbus drafting a lot of those really small forward. I was like, man, that's not really the road I would go to to build my team. And it's a team that needs to build like their franchise through the draft. It reminds me a bit of Buffalo. Buffalo did that too with a lot of smaller forwards, but they did get a lot of big defensemen. So that's a bit of a contrast here with what Buffalo did. But yeah, Columbus. That's our look at their prospect pool. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please subscribe. Please tell us we're wrong or right in the comment section. So hopefully you guys appreciate this. Our next video will be about the Dallas Stars. Speaking of a team that
their prospect pools,
yeah, and we have had like major disagreement with Dallas over the years. So we'll talk a lot more about this in the Dallas Stars video. That will be the next one to hit our YouTube channel. So please subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys pretty soon.
Take care, everyone.